Diallo here from RTE Sport, and delighted to be joined by Christian Wade, capped by England at rugby union level, has been part of a Lions squad as well. And just before we hit record here, he was telling me he knows pretty much most of the well-known Irish players as well, from Sexton to Brian O'Driscoll. He's been in and around them either as an opponent or also soldiering on the same side. Now, he is, as you can see in the background, it's nothing rugby related. It's the Buffalo Bills' practice area. He has been playing, he's been part of their squad for the last couple of years as he's made the switch to NFL. Christian, first off, hello. And I guess in terms of your interest, because we know obviously you have your career with England and Wasps behind you, but how did you get interested in the NFL in the first place? Was it something from childhood, or was American football something you discovered much later on?
To be honest, I've always kind of been a fan of the NFL for as long as I can remember. Playing video games. I think the first game I've actually posted it the other day. It was called NFL Blitz. It was a game made by Midway, and used to play that a lot. Then it was NFL Street, then there's all the Madden games. So yeah, I've always been a fan of the NFL, and obviously as I got older, started to watch it a little bit more as they decided to put it on TV back in the UK, albeit quite late, some of the games that we had to stay up to watch. But I've always been a fan, man. So when the opportunity came around to be able to make the switch, I mean, I had to go for it, because that's something that just doesn't happen, And as you've seen, I'm the first person was from rugby in England with my profile to actually, make that switch, which is crazy.
Yeah, and so you're doing that through the international player pathway. And in terms of how you end up getting recruited and how you put yourself on the radar for them, how did that whole process happen?
So I believe, obviously, you've seen the NFL UK, has a headquarters now in London. So that's obviously a subsidiary of the actual NFL, which is in New York. So, that's the office really that controls all the London series. So that's when the teams fly over and play at, formerly Wembley Stadium in Twickenham. But obviously now you have the purpose-built football stadium, the first ever purpose-built stadium in England. That is Tottenham Hotspur's ground. So, they were pretty much looking at what talent was out there outside of America, because they wanted to grow the game of NFL, just a bit like the NBA, where you have a lot of the NBA traveling to Asia and India and Australia, different parts of the world. And now you're seeing international players, or more and more international players in the NBA. So that's something that the NFL wanted to achieve, or is wanting to achieve, and has been successful at it. And the more people that can get involved who are outside of America, the better. So that's really where I came in, hearing about all the stuff that's going on, and then eventually the player pathway program, and then I saw some of my peers in rugby make the switch. And obviously they're a lot younger than me, but they were able to make the switch and stuff. And I've seen, the success that they were able to have and stuff. And, I saw it as an opportunity for me to kind of inquire and see if that's something that, because at my age, whether I could still do that, So, yeah, I was lucky enough to, I guess, be on the right side of 30, I guess.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of how this all came about.
And in terms of a position, running back obviously is the position you're playing and developing as, and it would be the most natural fit. But was that automatic in terms of being placed in that position?
To be honest, it was pretty much speaking with the guys at the NFL, they could already see kind of the position that I could slot into. I guess I wouldn't say the easiest, but the position that would suit me best because of my traits, speed, footwork, great hands, can catch, can pass. Not that I need to pass in football, but just looking at those attributes and stuff, that's really where it was as a running back or like, slot receiver or, someone who can be like a third down back or stuff like that, where I can run routes from the backfield or get involved in the run game and, just be like an added threat. And someone who's not necessarily in the game the whole time, but is a good threat and can do, a mixture of a lot of things. So
yeah, and the attribute, yeah, as you said, so the attributes you're bringing are kind of speed and ball handling, which of course, as a wing at rugby union level, comes with the territory. Obviously, you're coming at it with the disadvantage of having played a completely different sport for most of your life, compared to your American peers who have been doing this from school level into college and now into the pros. When you look at how much you've developed in the last couple of years and what you still need to work on most in comparison to your own peers in America, what's the thing that you still feel you need to, that you need to add to your game?
For me, it's just, I would not saying not instincts, but like right now, like I've got like a great foundation of like the whole game and stuff. So it's really just trying to layer on top of that now, so that, like last year would come in, we'd do a drill, or we'd be, would be in the game, and I would kind of, be slow to react or not really trusting my instincts because I'm doing too much thinking. Whereas, coming into it this year, it's a lot more fluid. I'm able to, play a lot more free because I know what's going on. You got all the linemen and all that doing their stuff and trying to rush, and there's things I have to do, all kinds of different reads and keys and all sorts of stuff that I'm not used to doing, or I'm used to doing it, but not have it like the tick sheet. The tick sheet, sorry, the tick sheet is like, 10 different things that I need to check before, the ball is even snapped. And then when the ball is snapped, like there could be, certain adjustments I have to make. Whereas in rugby, you might have, 2 or 3 things. So it's it's just another step up. But for me, it would be, the knowing the protections, like making sure I can react quickly to, the protections of. When I say the protections, by the way, I'm talking about. It's almost like a play that you put in to tell the lineman and the tight end if he's involved and the running back and how they're going to protect the quarterback. So that's what I mean by the protection and stuff.
Yeah, in terms of
for me, that would be, the thing that I need to have, down solid, for me to be able to like be on the field and get, regular reps kind of thing.
Yeah, and in terms of running mechanics, because again, that's a key part of your role. Obviously, you're quite quick, as you've said, and I think when you were younger, you ran something like 10.8 over 100 meters, which, to put it mildly, is a bit quicker than me, or 10 times quicker probably. But in terms of, again, when you're playing rugby as a wing, you're obviously not running in straight lines. There's footwork. You have to change lanes depending on what's in front of you and be able to play the game or to kind of read what's in front. When it comes to American football, again, it's a lot more stop-start. It's a lot quicker. You have to make those reads much more quickly. Has that been a challenge, and how have you, I suppose, had to train yourself in the way you run in changing sport?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge because, the biggest difference is the fact that, you have you're able to block. So I have blockers, sometimes that pull in to pull in, which is like you kind of try to explain it. It's when like the lineman kind of goes behind to try and get a block that's on the outside edge. So sometimes I have to be able to read those kind of blocks, or it could be, just a block where they're trying to square up, and depending on where the defender's going, they will adjust their block and stuff, and then that obviously means that I have to adjust, whether I'm stepping this way, and that's something that I really had to to learn, because it actually kind of cost me a touchdown last year, because the scenario was I had caught the ball from the backfield and I had run up the sideline after beating a couple of defenders, and then because in rugby you look downfield, that's anyone who's in front of you is on the opposition. But obviously in football, it could be your guy, it could be the opposition. So you just, like you said, have that awareness and know how to work off your blocks. And me, my instincts from rugby kicked in. I saw people down the field, so I ran to space, so away from the people to try and score. And I ended up getting tackled like 2 yards out from scoring a touchdown. But really, I should have just carried on straight up the sideline because the guys in front of me were actually my guys, but their guys too. But if I'd run, their kind of backside towards their backside, then they would have been able to keep, defenders out, and I would have just been able to walk it through. So that's a prime example of where I was last year compared to this year, and that was definitely something I had to get used to and kind of adjust my running style.
Yeah, but at the same time, you made a very quick impact because obviously, as it went around the world a little bit, your first carry, a 65-yard touchdown against the Colts in a practice game, and it obviously worked out very well. Like, I guess that must have been a moment of validation and confidence at the same time because you've been working hard behind the scenes and you get your first opportunity, you're put on, and then that happens.
Yeah, man, just exactly what you said there. It was definitely a moment of, validation for me because, like I said, this transition or this move from rugby was huge, you know what I'm saying? Like, where I was at in my career, coming into my prime and stuff, for me to decide to retire and move was obviously a big decision, something that I didn't come to just overnight. But ultimately, I made the decision, made a lot of sacrifices, been training hard on my own with the NFL straight after I retired, and then the IMG kind of training camp we did. Then it was OTAs and mini camp and all this sort of stuff. So, the whole build up to that game was massive. So then when I did, take that hand off and score a touchdown, it was just like, yeah, all that was definitely all worth it. And, everything I've been doing, brought me to this place so I could be successful. So, that just definitely gave me that extra push to be like, yeah, just keep going, keep doing what you're doing, and, success is going to follow you.
Yeah, and in terms of collisions, because you talked a bit about blocking there, rugby's increasingly collision-based, as we know, in the way the game is developing with bigger players and the like. So how do the hits compare? Obviously, you're padded in a different way when you're playing football, but what do the hits, or how do they compare between rugby and football?
Well, I haven't taken that many hits, to be honest, and it's not because I'm fast and great footwork. That would be a valid answer, I believe, but that's not the answer. But I haven't really taken many hits. But when I have been hit, it's kind of odd for me because I'm, first of all, not used to wearing pads. And I remember the first time I got hit, I was kind of like, oh, it didn't necessarily hurt, but I lost my balance really quickly. So I don't know if it was because of the force and how big the player was, or because I'm wearing these pads and whatnot, I'm just not used to, being able to balance and stuff. So I think the pads actually help, so it doesn't hurt as much. But, you're not padded up completely. So in the preseason game I played last year, the last game, I got a helmet to my elbow and to my forearm. My forearm is still hurts now. That was like over a year ago.
Oh,
so, it all depends how you get caught, really.
Yeah.
But if you can use your pads to protect yourself where it doesn't hurt as much. But, if they hit a sweet spot or an area that's not padded up, it hurts more than it would, in rugby because of the pads, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and the ball as well, of course, in layman's terms, for people who probably don't watch either sport, it looks vaguely the same, although vaguely the same in terms of shape, but obviously there are major differences, and that's something you have to get used to as well, because you're used to catching a rugby ball that doesn't go forward, and now this time it's getting placed into your hand. It's a different shape. You probably have to hold it in a different place. What's the difference in terms, especially when you've only got milliseconds to think about it?
Yeah, so, I mean, that was probably one of the first lessons that I was getting taught when I first left rugby. It's literally just how to catch the ball when it's coming at you. Just with your almost like make a diamond. And when you look at the ball, you have to look at the cross kind of that's made by the the stitching. So that's how you want that cross to hit you right there, catch it, and then when it hits you, it's an automatic kind of like softness right there. So that was like a first lesson. When the ball's coming high, catch it like this, and when it's low, it's the opposite way. That was like one of the first lessons. And then, that's when you're catching, when you're taking the handoff as a running back, you're talking about having your pocket. So this arm up right here, the other one down, and depending on what side you're running to determines which hand goes up. So they always say you want your elbow, you want to try and elbow your quarterback in the face. So if you're going to the left and he's giving it to you, you'd put your right arm up. If you're going to the right side, you put your left arm up. So this just like to the to fans or people watching, it doesn't, it seems pretty nonchalant, but these are all like real important things. Like if I take the ball with the wrong arm, it could mess up the whole timing of the whole play for the quarterback, for the receivers, for the linemen. So yeah, man, it's just like every aspect of football is like real technical, and the details do matter.
Yeah, and as you said, it's very, very detailed, and that goes down to the massive playbooks, and I've seen them in the documentaries. So you've got to try and obviously internalize everything that's written on these pages in here, which for me looks daunting because it looks like 2 or 3 encyclopedias in one. And so how do you how do you approach that actually, especially when you're, and I suppose maybe what's it like in rugby at professional level in terms of the detail that goes into certain plays, which obviously it's a more free-flowing game, and I suppose at the same time, do you have to, in rugby, do you have more I suppose leeway in terms of being able to interpret play in a way that you wouldn't maybe in football?
Yeah, there's definitely more leeway, because with rugby, you're really trying to, create space or play to space, and you have plays that you put in and learn on practice, really just to restart the game. So like, from a line out or scrum, penalty or whatever it is. Whereas, football is, all situations. It's all about situations and whatnot. So, there is, I guess, a little bit of free reign. Like if you're running there is a little bit of free reign, but there is a very kind of rigid structure. Like as a receiver, you're really trying to get to a space. If they're playing zone, you're trying to get to a spot. So then you do what you need to do to try and get to that spot. If you're playing man, then you might have a route that has a couple of different options. You can either run this way or you can run this way. So you do have free reign within your role, but it's still very like structured, so that's what I would say when it kind of compares to rugby, where there is, because that's something that I was kind of struggling with before. I was just like, well, everything's so, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and I was like, well, if it's always like that, you don't really get to get loose with it. But once I started learning the game and being out there and speaking to players like Josh and Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs and Smoke Brown, it was just kind of like, nah, you don't have to do this. Like that's how it's drawn up. But as long as you're getting to your spots and your timing is correct and you're running the right depths. So like, running at the right depth is crucial, because you might run a route at 5 yards. You might run a route at like 8 yards when you're supposed to run at 5, and then that means that you'll end up running into someone else in your team or messing up the whole timing of the play. So that's why the detail matters in football rather than in rugby, because you can just kind of adjust on the fly. You can't adjust on the fly with football as much.
Yeah, but in practice, when I suppose you're working off a certain aspect of the playbook, can you kind of influence maybe I suppose tweak certain things or speak to the coach or analyst, I suppose, between yourself and a quarterback or whatever, and then maybe try and interpret it in a way that works for everybody?
Oh yeah. So they'll we'll have obviously the playbook and stuff, and then we'll be out here. Once we've learned it, we'll be out here together. We might run the play, and then something comes up like, oh yeah, I don't know if that's going to work, or the timing didn't feel right. So okay, cool, you change your route, or we'll say, okay, we'll take that whole play out. We won't run it. You know, these are the kind of conversations that we have on a daily, and the coaches definitely are like, you know, in their meetings as well, debating what plays to put in, what to take out. You know, okay, should we adjust this one route of the 3 to something different because, you know, Diggs might, you know, prefer to do this route here rather than this, or, you know, there's all kinds of different variations that you can do. But, you know, unlike in rugby, you could just, you know, well, actually, I was going to say in rugby, you could just run it and not say anything.
Yeah.
You could also do that in football too. So, you know, when you watch football, sometimes you're like, oh, they might have thrown a touchdown and it worked. And you're like, oh, they practiced that. Sometimes, you know, people might either run the wrong route or they've seen something out there, so they just changed their route.
Yeah.
And although coaches don't like that because they say you just never do your own stuff, if it works, it works. So, you know, depending on who you are, sometimes you can do your own thing, but it better work, otherwise.
Yeah, or well, yeah, do it and ask questions later or whatever. In that sense.
Yeah.
The fact that you studied psychology and sports science at third level, have you kind of lent a little bit on that, especially now that you're kind of trying, I suppose, learning a new sport at an elite level?
Yeah, so I've always been like interested in, like, you know, how people think, and even with sports, just like how the body works and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I've always been intrigued by it and stuff. So obviously studying it in school and then went to university to learn it too. But to be honest, most of the stuff that I know kind of came from my experience of actually living it as a professional. And you know, you can ask the guys here, that everyone calls me Dr. Wade. That's like, I'm like an honorary doctor here. But then I was also an honorary doctor back at Wasps as well. But they never have spoke to each other to be able to, you know, so it's just kind of crazy. I always find myself in and around, you know, the training room or the treatment room, you know, just discussing about the body and, you know, nutrition and different training methods and all that sort of stuff. So I really just, you know, I just really enjoy that stuff, and it's helped me, you know, to be able to manage my body, minimize injuries. It also has enabled me to, you know, impart into like the younger guys back when I was in rugby, but then also some of the younger guys here as well. Because although I'm like the oldest rookie in the whole NFL ever, that means I'm with the rookies a lot of the time. But you know, the experience that I have is different to what they are experiencing. You know, so it can help me with football, and I kind of help them with, you know, off field and like keeping your body right, and you know, just ways to be successful, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and have your Bills teammates, just in practice, have they taken a bit of interest in rugby, and I suppose where you're coming from in that sense?
Some of them, yeah, I guess so. I guess some of them have, you know, like people were coming up to me last year, be like, oh, you know about the All Blacks, or I'm watching All or Nothing on Amazon, or I saw a rugby game, you know, like, because they know that I used to play rugby now, they've definitely gone and like watched highlights or try to go and see something about rugby. And I've definitely had a lot of people come and speak to me about it, which is cool. And then, you know, every so often this year, people will say stuff too, any new guys. And then, you know, I'm on the field with the kickers sometimes, just kicking, messing around, you know, teasing those guys as well. So yeah, man, it's cool being, you know, different in where I come from and the sport I play, and it's great that I'm at a team where the guys embrace me, you know, embrace rugby too, and we just all doing what we need to do, man, to be successful as a team.
Yeah, and I suppose finally, before I let you go, as you mentioned, a lot of the Irish, senior players, you'll know them, the likes of Johnny Sexton, JB Heath. Well, some of them are retired now, like JB Heath and Brian Driscoll. If any of those, or maybe even some of your former England teammates, are there any, like, if they had a brainwave in the middle of their careers and decided to do the exact same thing you're doing, which ones do you think would have been suited to playing American football?
Okay. To be honest, yeah, like, I see football just as I see rugby, in terms of like anybody shape and size can get involved. The back draw, from my point of view, or anyone else that's around my age, is, I've obviously been thrown in at the deep end at the highest level, so it's just like there's no time for them to be trying to teach me stuff and whatnot. Like, a lot of it is on me. I have to learn everything. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of players that could probably come over and be successful, but it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and it's completely different to rugby in terms of the mental capacity and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I'm trying to figure some names now who I think would do pretty good. I mean, I think Zeba would do well, to be honest. Like as a receiver, or maybe even like a running back. I know people might say, nah, but it's one of them things where literally all different shapes and sizes can play this game, and it's really just about learning the techniques and just understanding, the game of chess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my take on it. But I wouldn't advise you to do it late the way I did it, because that just makes it all the more harder.
Yeah, and I think Zebo was enjoying life in France as well. So
for sure, I've
seen him
with his little pool and the family just vibing. I saw AB went over there and was training with him and stuff. So I think he's got enough of a taste of the NFL for a lifetime. So he's cool.
All right. Well, Christian, thanks a million for taking the time, and enjoy life at Buffalo Bills. And hopefully we will see you playing playing in the NFL itself at some point in the future. But anyway, best of luck and take care.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, bro.